The cafe was buzzing with the usual Friday evening energy, couples laughing over wine, friends catching up, the hiss of the espresso machine providing a rhythmic backdrop. But in the corner booth by the window, Sarah Mitchell sat frozen, not by choice, but by the cruel reality that had defined her life for the past 3 years. Her wheelchair was positioned carefully at the table, a half-empty cup of coffee growing cold in front of her, and her phone face down beside it. She had stopped checking it 20 minutes ago. He wasn't coming. Deep down, she had known it the moment the clock struck 7:30, but hope, that stubborn, foolish thing, had kept her waiting. Now, at 8:15, with pitying glances from the staff and curious stares from other patrons burning into her skin, Sarah felt the familiar sting of tears threatening to spill. This wasn't just about being stood up. This was about being invisible, unwanted, a burden too heavy for anyone to carry. She blinked hard, willing herself not to cry in public, not again. Sarah had been nervous about this date from the moment she'd swiped right on Marcus's profile. He seemed perfect, charming smile, kind words, a job in marketing that suggested stability. They'd talked for 2 weeks, and he'd said all the right things. When he suggested meeting at Rosewood Café, she'd felt a flutter of excitement she hadn't experienced since before the accident that had stolen the use of her legs. She'd spent hours getting ready, carefully applying makeup, choosing a dress that made her feel beautiful despite everything. Her best friend Emma had helped her into the car, offering encouraging words and promises that this time would be different. But it wasn't different. It was exactly like the 3 dates before this one, a no-show, a hastily typed excuse that would arrive hours later, or worse, complete silence. Sarah had learned that disability made people uncomfortable, that her wheelchair was a conversation killer before the conversation even began. She represented complications, limitations, a future that required patience and adaptation. Most people simply didn't want to bother. She reached for her purse, fumbling with the zipper as her hands trembled. The waiter, a young man with kind eyes, had been hovering nearby, clearly unsure whether to approach or give her space. Sarah wanted to leave, to escape before her composure completely shattered, but the simple act of maneuvering out of the booth and calling for her accessible ride felt monumentally overwhelming in this moment. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" The voice was deep, warm, and unexpected. Sarah looked up to find a man standing beside her table, tall, probably in his early 40s, with salt and pepper hair and a tailored suit that spoke of success. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, genuinely kind and completely devoid of the pity she'd grown to despise. Beside him stood a little girl, perhaps 6 years old, with dark curls and a purple backpack shaped like a unicorn. No, it's not," Sarah managed, confused by the intrusion. "My daughter Lily and I were wondering if we could join you," the man continued, his smile genuine. "All the other tables are full, and she's had a long day. We just need a place to sit for a few minutes while we wait for our order." Sarah glanced around the cafe. There were at least 3 empty tables visible from where she sat. This made no sense, but something in the man's expression, a quiet understanding that transcended words, made her nod. "Sure, have a seat." The little girl climbed into the booth across from Sarah, swinging her legs as her father settled in beside her. "I'm Lily," she announced with the unfiltered confidence of childhood. "What's your name?" "Sarah." "That's pretty." "Daddy, doesn't Sarah have a pretty name?" "It's a beautiful name," the man agreed, extending his hand across the table. "I'm Daniel Pierce. Thank you for letting us crash your table." As Sarah shook his hand, she noticed he didn't glance at her wheelchair, didn't let his gaze linger on her legs or ask the inevitable questions. He simply treated her like a person, and that simple act made her throat tighten with emotion. "Are you waiting for someone?" Lily asked with innocent curiosity. "Lily, that's personal," Daniel gently chided, but Sarah found herself answering anyway. "I was, but they're not coming." The words hung in the air, heavier than she'd intended. Lily's face scrunched up in thought. "That's not very nice. It's mean to make people wait." "You're absolutely right," Sarah agreed, managing a small smile. Daniel caught Sarah's eye, and in that brief exchange, she saw recognition, not of who she was, but of what she was feeling. Somehow, this stranger understood. "Their loss," he said simply. "Anyone who stands someone up is missing out on something valuable." Before Sarah could respond, Lily launched into an enthusiastic story about her day at school, Something about a science project involving volcanoes and a minor baking soda incident that had gotten her in trouble. Daniel listened with patient attention, occasionally interjecting questions, but Sarah noticed he kept including her in the conversation, making sure she didn't feel like a mere observer. My mommy used to take me to cafes, Lily said suddenly, her voice softening. But she's in heaven now. Daddy says she's watching over us, but I miss having someone to talk to besides him. She wrinkled her nose playfully at Daniel. Boys don't understand everything. That's very true, Sarah agreed, her heart aching for this precocious child who had lost so much. Daniel's expression flickered with grief, but he masked it quickly. We're still figuring things out, just the two of us. The waiter arrived with their order, hot chocolate for Lily and a black coffee for Daniel. He also brought a fresh coffee for Sarah, which she hadn't ordered. Compliments of the gentleman, the waiter said, nodding toward Daniel. You didn't have to do that, Sarah protested. I know, Daniel said. But sitting here having coffee while you stared at a cold cup seemed wrong. For the next 40 minutes, Sarah found herself talking and laughing more than she had in months. Lily was endlessly entertaining, asking questions about Sarah's job as a graphic designer, showing her drawings from her backpack, and sharing her opinions on everything from unicorns to pizza toppings. Daniel was equally easy to talk to, intelligent and funny, with a self-deprecating humor that put her at ease. Only when Lily yawned widely did Daniel check his watch. We should get going. It's past someone's bedtime. I'm not tired. Lily protested, immediately contradicting herself with another yawn. As they prepared to leave, Daniel hesitated, then pulled out a business card. This might seem forward, but I'd like to give you this. Not for business reasons, I'm the CEO of a tech company, but that's not important right now. I'm giving you this because Lily and I are going to the aquarium next Saturday afternoon, and she would love it if you came with us. No pressure, no expectations. Just an invitation from two people who enjoyed your company. Sarah stared at the card, then at Daniel, searching for an angle, a catch, a reason why this successful man would want to spend time with her. She found none. I don't understand, she whispered. You don't know me. Why would you? Because everyone deserves kindness, Daniel interrupted gently. And because 2 years ago, I was sitting in a hospital room. After the worst day of my life, and a stranger, a nurse who wasn't even assigned to us, sat with me for 3 hours while Lily slept, just so I wouldn't be alone. She said something I'll never forget, we're all just walking each other home. Some of us roll, he added with a pointed but kind glance at her wheelchair, but the principle stands. No one should feel alone. Tears finally spilled down Sarah's cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness anymore. Lily immediately reached across and patted her hand. It's okay to cry. Daddy says tears mean your heart is working. Daniel nodded. What happened to you tonight was cruel and unfair. But it doesn't define your worth. Someone who can't see past a wheelchair to the amazing person using it doesn't deserve your time anyway. After they left, Sarah sat for a long moment, holding the business card. The cafe was quieter now, winding down for the evening. Her phone buzzed, a message from Marcus with a lazy excuse about something coming up. She deleted it without responding. Instead, she looked at Daniel's card, at the email address and phone number written on the back in neat handwriting. Below it, Lily had drawn a small heart with what appeared to be a unicorn beside it. Sarah had come here tonight expecting rejection. She'd found it, but she'd also found something unexpected. A reminder that goodness existed, that people could surprise you, that being seen and valued wasn't impossible. She carefully tucked the card into her purse, called her ride, and headed home with a lightness in her chest that had been absent for far too long. Some dates ended in disappointment, but sometimes, in the spaces between heartbreak and hope, strangers became the family you didn't know you needed. And sometimes, being stood up was actually the best thing that could have happened.